Greetings everyone, this is M-Dog, and I am here to try to be of an assistance to you. If you are fairly new to the game or new to Bear Lake, this video is going to be all about getting you on the right path when it comes to gear, baits, and hotspots for Bear Lake. So buckle up, going to try to give you a lot of information. It's actually not that complicated. Bear Lake comes so early in the process that you don't have access to all of the fancy equipment that you'll eventually have for carp fishing. Bear Lake is really, along with Oldberg, but especially Bear, is the introduction to carp fishing. So let's take a look. First thing you'll notice if you have played this game enough, we are actually here at Volkov to start off the video. And that is because I wanted to remember to tell you that there's not a tackle store, or just so you know already, a cafe at Bear Lake. Bear Lake is simulating an idea of a sort of way out in the boondocks kind of water body, not close to a big city like Volkov, where there are all of the stores and stock and all that. But if you have saved up enough silver to be able to purchase the gear you need to actually go carp fishing at Bear Lake, which opens up at level 18, then in actuality, you're probably well past level 18. Not many players are going to be prepared to efficiently or effectively go fishing at Bear the moment they hit level 18. So it's not unreasonable to think that you would be here at Volkov getting all of the gear you need to then go to Bear and fish. Volkov is the first place at level 20 that we unlock where you can actually go to the store and expect to have almost everything be in stock. So all of those things that you've been wanting to get, flies, leaders, size 22 hooks, whatever it is, they are finally in stock. You now can go and purchase as many 22 hooks as you would like to. So that's always fun. Secondly, you do want to make sure when you go carp fishing at Bear that you've done enough thinking about what you need equipment-wise so that once you get there you can fish. I've already taken care of that. Let's get to Bear and let's start looking at our equipment, looking at spots, and actually try to catch a couple fish for you. Now, I'm going to pull up when we get to Bear and get settled, get at least one rod in the water. I'm going to pull up the fish list and we'll talk about all the fish you can catch here. But don't be distracted. If you're here at Bear, for the most part, you're carp fishing. That's what you're doing here. Most likely. Are there some little, exceptions here and there? Possibly, but most likely you're carp fishing. Okay, so the first thing I want us to do is I want us to go to the first spot. This just happens to be, I'm showing you 3 spots today, okay? This first spot happens to be the most active spot at the moment. 2 of the 3 spots right now are fairly active, but one of them in particular, this one. So we're gonna go down here to 5531. And we're going to do a little bit of fishing while I'm showing you some equipment and talking about different approaches to fishing here at Bear. Okay, so let me go ahead and get our 3 setups out that I actually want to show you. I have 2 carp rods and a feeder rod. So when you start carp fishing, you will either set up your carp rig on a carp rod, or if you have stuck with the feeder rods or bottom rods longer, you might fish for carp with carp rigs or loop rigs or inline rigs or patternust or whatever on a feeder rod. You have both options, so I'm going to show you both options. But as we're talking through this, just remember my recommendation for what you are going for to fish here at Bear and beyond, what I'm suggesting you start saving for if you want to be serious about fishing for carp even in these mid-level water bodies, is the first setup. This one on the far left, okay? So let's take a look at this one. And let's also go ahead and get it in the water. So again, we'll increase our chances of being able to catch something. So we are going 17-meter clip. I haven't fished here recently. So I am going on a little bit of faith based on what I've heard from others that this spot is active. So we're going for 17 meters. Frankly, 17-meter clip, you could cast this way. You could cast this way. I've even done it over there before. I mean, you're gonna get, if this spot is active anywhere in here, you're gonna get some fish. So let's get one out there. And wow, did not necessarily want this to be our happy hour, but it's okay. We're not gonna worry about it. All right, let's look at this setup. To me, this is the ideal carp setup that you want to be aiming for. The Fortuna Carp 360XH is the carp rod, and the Siberia Caliber HSV 80 is the spinning reel that I am suggesting is the ideal setup for you to be saving for so that you can start fishing for carp aggressively. Now, cost-wise, this reel is 2,800 silver. That's a lot of silver. According to how low level you are, that feels like a lot. I'm just telling you that it is worth it, in my opinion. So, this is the ideal setup. If you are impatient or just really want to get to carp fishing, you may end up going for carp with a setup that is less than ideal. But this is what you're aiming for. And once you have this setup, you can fish for carp, not only at Bear, not only at Oldberg, you can even fish for carp with this setup at Amber. Now, I would suggest some spots are better than others for you at Amber. Some situations are better than others for you at Amber if this is your setup, but you can do it. Okay, so let's talk about this. The reason why this carp rod is so good, the load capacity is over 39. I think we actually have a fish on. We do have a fish on. Oh, it's a grass carp. We have carp. 7.2 kilo grass carp has come to the party. I love it. Notice that's no PVA. We haven't even put any ground bait in the water yet. We're already catching. That's a good sign. Okay, so the load capacity is 39. That means you could use this carp rod even with the biggest carp setup in the game, because I'm going to go to one of my end END game carp rod setups. So this Avalon or Sage, whichever one. I run these Megara 8000s, but even these really expensive, really nice carp setups, they max out at 36.2. You're not getting any more than 36 kilos because of the material you have to use in the lead core and the leader. Okay, so back to the Fortuna carp rod. 36 is less than 39. So yeah, it's not ideal. If you start getting wear on the rod, you have to replace it at some point. But in the big scheme of things, these rods are fairly inexpensive, especially when you start catching a lot of carp. You're going to be making a lot more silver. So again, these rods are worth it. They can grow with you. And to start off with, we're talking about the Caliber HSV. I told you it cost about 2,800 silver. It does have a mech weight of 31 kilos. So we actually are running, they've got a little bit of wear on them, this leader and lead core. So we're not fully getting 31 kilos of strength out of these, but we are pushing this towards the max of the mech weight of the Caliber HSV. I don't love doing that. You can. I'm just showing you. You can get a lot of power. The other thing is, now this gets a little technical and a little advanced if you're new to the game, but technically you can go to the workshop and you can actually have the caliber HSV upgraded so that you get even more strength out of it. And that's probably for another video, but I'm just letting you know that it does have some potential to get a little more strength, because this only has a max drag of 15.4. That's the number that would go up a little bit. So mech weight is how much pressure the whole mechanical system can take before it breaks. But the actual drag of pulling in fish, the max drag of the caliber HSV is 15.4. Now, I'm not explaining this perfectly, but I think it's close enough that at least gives you an idea of what we're talking about. You hear people throw around these different terms a lot in this game. It is important to realize, because if you're overloading, like right now, we are way overloading. If we only have a max drag of 15.4, we've got 32 kilo line with 31.7 lead core and leader, although we see that there's wear on the lead core and leader, 11%, 9.4%. So if something breaks, hopefully with the way I have it set up, the leader would break first. Other things to notice, I am using a large one hook. No reason to go any bigger than a large one hook, especially here at Bear. In fact, there's an argument that a size 2 hook, maybe even a size 4 hook sometimes, is good. But bait-wise, right now, what just happens to be working pretty well are these pop-up blackcurrant 15 pop-up boilies with blackcurrant flavored purple corn and blackcurrant dip. Now, this is a classic pop-up rig. You change your rig type up here. We're using classic pop-up. I also want to show you the second rig, and we're going to put it out at the same distance. And just for now, focus on the bait. Notice that this is a classic hair rig. So I could have put it on classic pop-up like the other one. But if you haven't quite unlocked classic pop-up, the first carp rig you unlock is classic hair. So I'm also showing you that this rig type should work as well. We're running blackcurrant, but since we're using classic hair, we have pellets, where classic pop-up, we have corn. So I just threw some cocos and cream pellets on here because I wanted to remind myself to tell you that even though blackcurrant's working really well right now, and a lot of times fruit does, one of the best boily corn flavors to use at Bear often is cocos and cream. So don't sleep on the cocos and cream. All right, so let's go ahead and put this in. We'll talk more about this setup in a minute, but let's get another setup in there. So again, you can kind of see fish coming in on multiple setups. And once again, for our third setup, we'll talk more about the Saber 60 and the feeder rod we're using. But notice on this one, we're not using boilies. We're not even using a carp rig. This is a loop rig. But especially here at Bear, and to a lesser degree, or to another degree, also Old Berg, don't forget about your natural baits going for carp, honey doe, any of these. It's worth trying at times. Cabbage leaf is good. Bread can sometimes be good. These boilies don't work anymore. These are from 100 years ago when the game first came out. Even something like corn or pea, corn especially. What I have on there, though, is maybe the most consistent, and that's potatoes. So we're going to put potatoes in there as well. And I'm going to go into more of an explanation. I think that clipped right. Of these second and third setups, but I just wanted to get everything in the water so we have a chance of catching a few fish while we're here talking about Bear. There's another grass carp, sorry. That might be the carp that's most active here right now. That's what I'm starting to sense. 2 grass carps. Okay. So, what do we have left to talk about? I want to show you 2 more spots. We don't have to fish the other spots. I just want to show them to you. Because really, in my mind, there are 3 main spots here at Bear. Are there other places you could catch carp? Of course. Are there other places worth fishing at? Definitely. Keep an eye on resources like your favorite Discord channel, VK, whatever resources you use, whatever community you're a part of, to find out about good spots to fish here at Bear. The official RF4 Discord has really good spot updates these days. So pay attention, try different things out, but I want to show you the 3 spots that I think are the most consistent, that it seems like sort of rotate through. All right, here's the first fish we've caught on potatoes. So let's see what this is. But I do want to get back to talking about the other gear. Is that a mirror carp? Yeah, a very small mirror carp. And this is our first fish on the classic hair rig, which is with the blackcurrant and the cocos and cream. Another grass carp, gotta love it. So just while I'm thinking about it, if you go to cocos and cream 16, cocos nectar, this is a great bait combination to use. Notice also I'm using a smaller hook. We're trying to get a little bit smaller fish, be efficient, get a better bite rate. We don't have PVA yet. You're new to carp fishing. You're not 100% bottom fishing yet, so you can't use PVA. So we're trying to make it where we get a better bite rate. If you want to go to classic pop-up, this is probably like one of the most, let's just put like a size 2 hook on here. This is probably one of the most dynamic bait, rigs for Bear Lake. Pop-up cocos and cream, cocos and cream corn, cocos nectar dip. So many good fish have been caught on the, both the pop-up and the sinking boilie. By the way, if I didn't say it, that's the difference in the pop-up, classic pop-up rig versus the classic hair rig. The hair rig is using sinking boilies, and the pop-up rig is using pop-up boilies. So they're gonna float up away from the hook, or away from the rest of the rig. They'll be a little bit up, easier to see, where the sinking boilies will just sort of sit there on the floor of the lake instead of floating. All right, there's another grass carp. Just for fun, let's throw one of the other sweet dough. Let's try honey dough. Just put another natural bait on there. I just can't tell you enough how much it's important that you don't forget about the natural baits. Don't get caught up on just boilies. Natural baits can be good too. But look at this bite rate. All right, so I know we're about to start talking about, I want to go through the other gear options that we have in front of us to give us some choices. Not just, my number one recommendation is that first setup. Wow, look at this. You know you're getting some good information when we trophy during the tutorial video. All right. Technically that is a carp, right? All right. Look at the time of day, by the way. It's like 11 o'clock in the morning and these big old gibbles are coming out. All right. Before we get to the remainder discussion about the gear, let me show you one more thing. I want to show you this catapult. Okay? So we can clip this just like not clip it, but do casting distance, just like we're clipping the rods. I've got this loaded up with black grass carp mix because it seems like grass carp are the most active carp right now that we're seeing in this spot. And that's the same ground bait I'm using in this loop rig, which I know we haven't talked about this gear yet, but I wanted to show you that. So if you go to bottom fishing, you'll notice that right here, you open up the ability. I think this is like 40, 45%. You open up the ability to use the slingshot, right? Now, if you are already at 80%, then forget the slingshot. You want to be using the spod rod with the rocket feeder, maybe a Cobra, but probably the spod rod. Once you get to 100%, you're using PVA bags. But if you're just getting to Bear Lake, if you're introducing yourself to carp fishing, which I assume is why you're here on this video, trying to figure out what do I do here at Bear Lake, you're not at 100% bottom fishing. In fact, you're probably weeks, if not months from that. If you get to 90%, you can use Method Classic or Method Pop-Up, which allows you to put ground bait on your rig instead of throwing it in manually or slingshotting it in. But chances are, you're here at Bear, you're probably more like 50%, 60% bottom fishing. If you're focusing a lot on bottom fishing, if you've been preparing for carp fishing, that's probably more like where you are. And so it's always good to eat carrots so you can catch more trophies. Wait, what? It's always good to feed the water if you're carp fishing. You want to feed the spot. But you don't have the ability to feed the spot if you're just getting to Bear or still in your low 20s and still leveling up your bottom fishing and all that. So what you want to do is, at this point, the best thing you might be able to do is grab one of these slingshots. You can get them that uses ground bait, or you can get them that will cast out, hold on, what's the other one? All right, this one does ground bait. This one does boilies or pellets. Either one is good. I'm doing the ground bait one, but either way, you just want to be feeding the water, okay? You want to increase your bite rate by feeding the water. So like first thing in the morning, you might come over here and start casting out. Boy, that's getting close. So we have it set at 17 meters. So I think if we go 100%, it'll go 17 meters. I believe that's how it works. And you know, we want to get 4 or 5. I don't know. I don't know the exact science here. They have like a couple of meter, 2-3 meter. If you go in on the FAQ that the developers have done over the past couple of years, they give some pretty good information in the forum on the website about how that all works. Which, by the way, if you go, you can hover over this. It says the duration of these ground bait balls is 17 hours. So I would say once to twice a day, feed the water. It is possible to overfeed it, but since we don't have ground bait on 2 of our rods, we're not using PVA, we don't have a spod rocket and a spod rod, just catapulting either pellets or boilies or ground bait out there, I'm not super worried about us overfeeding it. Okay, so notice sort of the fight of this with this fish, because in just a minute we're going to actually look at the equipment I'm using here. So notice what size this fish is, how it has kind of at first was trying to pull on me a little bit. So that's less than 5 kilo grass carp. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, so we have now fed the water with ground bait that should attract the grass carp that we're already catching some of. We have talked about the ideal setup that I'm recommending you work towards to fish here at Bear. Caliber HSV, Fortuna carp rod. Largest size hook you want to use, large one. Feel free to use a little smaller. I really like size 15 boilies here at Bear. You could do 20. You'll see higher level players using 20 boilies, but they're just trying to sit on trophies or really catch the... If you're leveling, you want to catch as high a catch rate as possible. You want bite rate. I promise. You're going to make more silver, you're going to have more fun, and you're going to progress better. So that's what you want to do. So, I know I keep saying, let's talk about, how can I do this? What's the easiest way to, all right, Bear Lake. This is the easiest way. We're about to finish talking about the gear, but just real quick. These are the fish that are here at Bear Lake. Black carp. Do you want to catch it? Absolutely. Can you catch it? Yes. Sometimes black carp spots come up. It's great. Bleak. Do you want to catch it? I don't know. Is it easy to catch? I don't know. You don't hear much about bleak or bream at Bear. Again, is it possible? Sure. I actually remember back in the day fishing for bream here occasionally, so you can do it, but that's not probably why you come to Bear. Most weeks, if you want to catch bream, there's probably a better option, just being honest. Burbot, same thing. Chinese sleeper, same thing. If you're targeting Chinese sleepers, you're probably going to catch better Chinese sleepers at Mosquito or Old Berg or something. Chub, you know, Belaya, Old Berg, Winding. It's probably not what you're targeting here. Now, could a spot pop up? Yes. I mean, absolutely. Anything, I mean, it happens. Common barbel, type of carp. Is this what you want to target here at Bear? Absolutely. This is what you want to fish for. And I don't know right now, but sometimes good barbel spots pop up. And sometimes the same bait that you'll catch other types of carp on will also target barbel. They're usually a little more fishy, but fishy baits, fishy boilies, but that's always good. Common carp, yes, you want to catch them. Roach, you probably want to avoid them, though you can often catch roach about anywhere. Crucian carp and gibble carp, I doubt you're coming to Bear to target them, but just like what happened a minute ago, you don't mind catching big ones. You just don't want to like target them here. There's better places to target them. Now, golden tench. Once in a blue moon, you'll have a golden tench spot where black currant or cocos and cream or something like that will catch really good carp, and every once in a while, golden tench. So yes, golden tench, sort of like a carp species, I believe. You do want to catch them. Grass carp, yes. Eyed, not really. There's probably better spots. Leather, mirror carp, yes. Perch, pike, probably not. If you see spots, that's great. River mussel, I forgot they were even here. Rough, no. Tench, yes. Because sometimes tench will be active with the golden tench. White bream, actually, white bream, every once in a while, Bear will have really good white bream spots. Not as consistent as Old Berg, I would say, and some of the other places, but every once in a while, Bear actually is pretty good for white bream. Okay, so sorry. I just wanted to talk about, I guess what I'm trying to communicate is, yes, there's other fish species, and sometimes it will be worth targeting them, but mostly the reason why you want to spend time here is to carp fish. We are in the doldrums of the middle of the day here. Remember that bite rate we had before? Well, it has slowed down. All right, let's talk about this middle setup. This middle setup has the Mecta carp rod. I don't know why you would ever get this instead of the Fortuna carp rod, but if for some reason you do, I'm just showing you can use all kinds of different carp rods, feeder rods. I like the Mecta carp rods, but the Fortuna carp rod is always the better choice. It's a little more expensive, but it's worth it. This one only has a 90 gram test, which can be limiting. It also has a 30 kilo load capacity, which is definitely limiting. Now, as far as the Narga goes, the Narga is more expensive than the Caliber HSV. So the Caliber HSV, in my mind, is not only a better reel, but it's also a cheaper reel. Some people will say that they like the Narga better because it's got a little more power. It's got a heavier mech. You can safely overload it a little farther than the Caliber HSV. But the Caliber HSV's got the bigger spool. Caliber HSV just feels like a carp rod. Now, people that do more spin fishing, trolling, maybe there's an argument there. I don't know. I've never really understood the Narga argument. Some people do though. Some people swear by them. And there's other options in this range too. I just think the Caliber HSV is superior if the main thing you want to do is carp fish, and it can also be a backup for, or it also can be used to troll wherever. Kori, Volkov. I mean, really any of the maps. The Caliber HSV is very versatile. You could even use it as a starter reel at Norway, though you need to be very careful in that scenario. Other than that, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say about this setup. I've used a 27.2. The Narga has a mech weight that's even bigger than the Caliber HSV. So you could go a little heavier than this like we did on the Caliber, but I was just showing you another example. You kind of always want to start with what size lead core and leader am I going to use? Because there's only so many options. The last one I showed you was 31. The next smallest is 27. I think past this might be around 22. So, you know, there's so many options as you move down the weight, up and down the weight categories. And so you just kind of have to start with those to figure out, okay, what am I aiming for? I'll always make sure that the weakest part of your rig is the leader, followed by the lead core, followed by the line, followed by the reel, followed by the rod. In an ideal world, that's what you want. All right, one of these rods has a fish on it. Oh, goodness. Okay, none of them do. It's a fake bite. But we are getting some nibbles somewhere, maybe? Okay, so that's the second rod. Let's look at the equipment on the third rod. This one, so this is by far the cheapest reel. And you're definitely pushing it. If you're fishing for carp on a Saber 60, which we've all done it, by the way. In fact, I've done it on leveling series because, again, it takes a long time to save up for these Caliber HSVs. It's worth it once you do save up for them. But until you get there, it is a grind. And sometimes you just can't help it. You want to get moving. So I like the Siberia Saber 60s a lot. They've got a big spool. They have 9.9 drag, which is not enough power. And they have, I think it's 21 kilo on the mech weight. Let me make sure on this. Why can't I find... Oh, there it is, Saber 60. 21.5 mech weight. But it only costs $1,150 silver. So it is a good bit cheaper. But I'll tell you, if you save enough for a Saber 60, just remember you're not that far away from the Caliber HSV. I mean, you are. So I get it. The other thing that happens is, and I haven't gone back and watched. A long time ago, I did a video on gear progression and spots for Kori Lake. And chances are I talked about the Saber 60 in that video as well, because I think the Saber 60, that's sort of the size and power in a reel that you want to troll Kori on the weaker end. I mean, you could do it with less than that, but again, if you want to be efficient, if you want to feel somewhat powerful, it's a good reel to troll Kori. So you might have it for that purpose and then decide to start experimenting with carp fishing. If you're going to do that, you just want to, in my opinion, try to avoid the really big carp. But you've got enough spool, you can wear them out. I just think most people will get tired of how long those fish fights will take. And it will feel very inefficient. Do a lot of damage to your gear. I mean, you'll make it and you'll catch some cool fish, but I would try to mitigate that. You can't mitigate it completely, but you can sort of move the slider of the random number generator in your favor to try to catch mostly reasonable sized carp based on the hook size you're using, what bait you're using. By the way, potatoes seem to do much better than honey dough. Might be different next week, but for right now, that seems to be the case. And again, we're using natural bait. So just to let you see this setup one more time, notice that the load capacity is 19 kilos on this Fortuna feeder. So this is a feeder rod, not a carp rod. But this is a great feeder rod, and it's very inexpensive. So you could put this setup together for a pretty reasonable price and, you know, throw 17.4 power on here. The mech weight of the Saber 60 is 21.5, so we're still under that. And you can have a good time. I mean, you can do some pretty decent fishing. So that's just kind of what I was getting at. All right. I don't think that's going to be a carp. It's just been nibbling for so long. I mean, it could be, but I think it's going to be some kind of small fish, but let's see. Yeah, I was right. And there's plenty more natural baits we could try, but we know that potato's at least working a little bit right now, so I'll throw that back on there. So there's your 3 gear setups that I think are at least worth thinking through. But if you're asking me what's my recommendation, what are we aiming for, it's this setup. This is what we want, okay? All right, let's look at those other 2 spots. Where is my marker rod? All right, so what I'm about to show you is I'm going to throw this marker rod out. I'm going to throw it out here, and then I'm going to throw it out at the other 2 spots. And we'll check and see what the bottom is made of. This marker rod basically allows us to see how deep it is and what the bottom is made of. That's not really why I'm doing this. I'm really doing this just so I can show you where you're kind of casting for in these other 2 spots once we get there. But for right now, let's check. All right, so now we're going to start reeling very slowly, and it will tell us what the bottom is made of in this spot. All right, so we have clay soil. I don't know if you saw it, but it was in the bottom left hand at the very beginning of the bar that's at the bottom of the screen. Wow, we've got something going on. All right, let me get this in, and then we'll catch this, hopefully catch this fish. Yeah, we put potatoes on, and immediately we've got another carp on. Let's see how this is. All right, I'm going to lock it up. Okay, you see how my friction brake is completely closed? That means that either we're bringing the fish in or something's going to break. And that's how you sort of tap into that mech weight above and beyond the power that the actual max drag capability of the rig it has. But you want to be careful with that. It's not something you want to do very often. It is something that you can do, but it's probably not something you want to start off doing. All right, so 4450 is where we're going next. By the way, this is the little town of Bear, and it's really just like a grocery store and a little van that serves as the fish market. We made 81 silver without hardly trying. Oh, they do sell feed mixes. Oh, this is like the gold only thing. I forgot they added that. Grocery store, administration building, so you can get your map. All right, let's go check out these other spots. We're going to 4450. This is usually going to be a 22 clip, though there's some variety. I mean, every once in a while you'll see like, oh, 21's working better or 23's working better. This is basically where you want to be fishing. And you're kind of casting like in that direction at 22, or maybe a little bit right, but I've had the most success typically casting over that weed, 22 meters, and just like that. Let's check really quick and see what the bottom here is like. So look at the beginning of the bar, sort of where I'm at here, trying to point on the other side of this bar. At the very bottom left of the bar, you should see, or yeah, down there, you should see what type of, okay. So the soil here is weeds. And then if you open the bale, so I hit enter to open the bale. Problem is I can't see it. We're just gonna have to wait. Hope that floats. So you're waiting for the float to go back up to the top. Then you close the bale and slowly, now you've got soil, weeds, and depth is 1.2 meters. So it can be some good information just to kind of know like what's going on. Especially in weeds, to me it makes sense that might be a reason to at least try pop-up instead of classic hair as a starting point. Okay, the other thing I need to tell you is sometimes this spot is straight out. Sometimes this spot is straight out, usually just over that weeded area. The same clip or similar clip, but more often it's this way. All right, one more spot to show you, and that's going to be 5563. I think this is typically a 21 clip, but let me go see it because I have to see these spots to visualize kind of what we're talking about. But this is going to be 5563. This one is also semi-active right now, so we could have fished up here. You know what? I think I made a mistake. Yeah, I think I made a mistake. I think 5563 is the one that you cast over. You cast over that last weed. Just like that. It's been so long since I fished it at these spots. I think that's actually this spot though. If I look at the beach that we're standing on, I might be able to tell then. Let's see what this ground is real quick, just so we know. So this is clay, which makes more sense. I was kind of surprised that last one was weeds. All right, so that's clay. We'll let it float back to the top. And now we close it. I must have gone too fast because we're not getting the depth. I think I just closed it a little too fast. Anyway, let's let me pull up 4450 really quick and just confirm. I know that this one, I know that 5563 is the spot that I was thinking of. See, here's this beach. You go right here and you cast right over that weed. And that looks more familiar, kind of. In fact, even like this, even over the second line of weeds. Let me check this really quick. 5563 has been active recently. Sometimes people are nice enough to actually show you a picture where they're casting. Yeah, so I'm 100% correct. Now, 5563 is the one where you're casting over the weeds, okay? So now let me scroll way down and find a 4450 spot. All right, here's 4450. And this is the 22 clip, and this is the one that's straight end. I was right about the second part of it. The first part of it, I was wrong. So 4450, you're wanting to go over those weeds that were straight ahead. And these are the three hot spots. I mean, it's not 100% of the time, but most of the time, one of these spots is going to be active. So right here. And I often will actually, to kind of see what's working the best, I'll do one here, and maybe even one here. So you're just going 22 meters straight out over those weeds right there. Forget what I was saying about this. I had the spots mixed up in my head. Once I got to 5563, I knew that I was in trouble. All right, let's go back. I hear our bells ringing all the way across the lake. Let's go see if we have a couple of fish on, and then I just need to think, is there anything else we need to say about carp fishing at Bear to make sure you are ready to enjoy the wonderful world of carp fishing? I mean, I guess I haven't said it. One thing you can always do is check the weeklies to look and see what baits are working. If you don't use VK or Discord to get spot information, or you're not a part of a community, I may actually need to walk this fish down, because I think we have 2 pretty good sized fish on. So your chances of losing the fish does increase a little bit when you do this, but I just kind of want to increase the chance that we don't get spooled or just have a long chase in the other one. All right, so notice we're at 28. This is actually a pretty decent fish. I'm going to try to lock it up and see what happens. All right, so there's locked up. Let's see if he can pull it all. So the danger in locking it up, first of all, you put pressure on the mech, the mechanism, and so you do more damage to the mech. So instead of the damage going to the friction brake, the damage is going more to the mech. So the mech is more expensive to repair. The other potential problem is if it pulls really hard, it could either hopefully break your leader or something before you realize it, or it could break your gear if you don't have your rod or reel set up properly. Now this is going to be interesting. What size is this grass carp? 12 kilo. 12 kilo, and we were, this almost felt like we were in a fight of our life there. So these grass carp are monsters, especially on this like beginner carp gear, which is why I don't feel super comfortable with the idea of using the Saber 60. It's just not enough power. I do love these little spinning reels though. I forget how fast these things reel. It's amazing. I gotta get my energy up. I'm gonna try locking this one too. But I wanna get my energy up first. All right, so now it's locked. Actually, I'm gonna unlock it so I can drink some, wait, is cocoa favorited too? Yeah. Just trying to get some sugar in me to get my energy back. There we go. All right, now I'm gonna lock it. So I'm just sort of showing you the basics of how locking these things works. You do have to be really careful with it. And I don't recommend, I mean, if you're not wanting to live on the edge, if you want to be more careful, like, don't do it. You don't need to do it. Like here, let me unlock it. We'll just see how this fight goes unlocked. Too many bad things can happen. I mean, honestly, the bad things can happen if you don't set your gear up properly, if you don't follow the steps that we've talked about in terms of having the weakest point of your gear, making sure that it's your leader and then your lead core. If you don't do that, then you're eventually gonna hook into the wrong fish, and your reel or your rod is gonna absorb too much of the power and it's gonna break something. So it's really important before you start putting expensive gear like this on the line that you have a good understanding of setting this stuff up properly. And so even though, like, I want you to understand, like when you hear people talking about locking it up and overloading stuff, like I want you to understand what they're talking about. Until you've got a good bit of experience and really grasp what's going on with some of those conversations, I just want you to be really careful, because there's nothing more frustrating than saving for a caliber HSV and then setting up your rig wrong and breaking it. Like, I can't imagine how you come back from that one and keep fishing and keep having a good time. You just probably have to take a break. I mean, that would just be devastating, right? So we've just caught 2 really nice grass carp on this gear, and at least it has given you the opportunity to see that really nice big fish can be caught on these entry-level carp setups. And I do love that there's some gibbles mixed in as well. Okay, I think that's going to do it. I think that's everything you need to know to get started here at Bear Lake. Carp fishing is so fun. It is complicated. There's a lot to work out, to kind of figure out and understand. But once you get there, I mean, it is a blast. You make a lot of good silver. I mean, we have made 125 silver in 40 minutes. And it's been a blast. So it's just very cool. Don't sleep on the nature baits. Again, what you're going for is high bite rate. Tweak things, smaller hooks, smaller baits, whatever you need to do until you can get a high bite rate. That's what you want early on. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if this is helpful. I want to do more content like this, really targeting different bodies of water or different transitions, natural transitions in the game. Because all the time we've got new players joining us in this wonderful community. And if nothing else, over the years, I've tried to give a little bit of help. There's people that know way more about this game than I do, but just a little bit of help to the people that need it most. Because I remember what it was like for me when I first started. And I remember that first time I came out and started fishing at Old Mosquito Lake and could not figure out a thing. It seemed so complicated, so overwhelming, and I had to step away for a day. I was intrigued and I ended up coming back, obviously, but that first experience, it was just like, whoa, what is going on? So anyway, I hope this is helpful. Tight lines, and I'll see you next time.